Hunter Christian Thompson Eckerman, 19 years old, passed away Monday, January 4th, 2016, at University Hospital. Hunter was born on February 5th, 1996 in Richmond, Kentucky. He was a student in the Youth Build program, was interested in history, and desired to study archaeology in college. A devoted friend, Hunter enjoyed making all his friends laugh. He loved children, animals, and especially board sports. Hunter was an organ donor and helped save 5 lives through his donation. This is from the Louisville Courier-Journal on January 8th this year. Hunter Ackerman saved 5 lives, but I couldn't save his. You see, Hunter was one of my status kids. He was a great kid, a young man who came to court having missed many days of school. Because he was smoking marijuana, he was laid up with girls, and he basically checked out of what he was supposed to be doing. You all know Hunter. He was somebody you went to high school with, right? And for a lot of you all, high school wasn't all that long ago. Hunter is a perfect example of looking at a child in court only through one lens. And that lens is, what did you do wrong? Not who are you, and why aren't you achieving, and how can I help? Hunter was a great-looking young man. He was smart, he was tall, he was polite, and lost. You see, no one in the system asked him why. Why, Hunter, weren't you going to school? What was going on? And what nobody knew until I pried and cajoled and asked was that Hunter, who had been an honor student, was in a great deal of pain. You see, he'd been dating this really nice girl, but like things happen in high school, he decided that they were going to break up. And she suicided the very next day. But the way our courts are designed to hear status cases, that is truancy, you come in the door, I read your file, I open your file, I see how many days you've missed, I assign blame, I tell you what to do next, and then I give you a laundry list of things to improve yourself and tell you to come back to court in about 6 weeks, having accomplished all those things. Go to school every day, get good grades, keep your behaviors in line. Like the kids wouldn't have done that anyhow if they could have, if they had the supports in place to assist them. So across this country, courts as well as schools, and the statutes allow it, the law, intentionally embarrass, they harass families and children and students that aren't successful. So what happens to a judge that has Hunter in front of them and says, Hunter, last time you were in court, I told you you had to go to school and keep a C average. And now you're back in court, and Hunter, you haven't been going to school. Well, what I've done is I've painted myself in a corner, haven't I? Because now what do? Does wearing a black robe and sort of this judicial process really mean anything if I don't sort of carry through with my word? You know, I'm a parent, right? I told you 3 times to do that, or I'm going to fill in the blank. The result is the judges are now our backs up against the wall. So I'm going to show you, Hunter. I'm going to show you. I'm going to put you in detention, and that's going to improve your behaviors. And raise your hand if you think that works. And so what we've done is we respond, and we meaning the system, the schools, the courts, the adults in our children's lives respond to behaviors, not causes. Hear me. We respond to behaviors. We do not respond to the cause of those behaviors. And what are those causes? The chief mentioned some of them, and you know them. They're things well, let me put it this way. Domestic violence, street violence, assaultive behavior on our kids by parents, mental health issues, depression, other behaviors of parents, substance abuse, homelessness, poverty, hunger, and trauma. Of those things that I've just listed, which of those things are the child's fault? Is it the child's fault family is homeless? Is it the child's fault, the student's fault, that there's violence within the home, or that mom suffers from depression or other mental illness, or that the child does? And yet the system response is, we're going to punish the child because of the behaviors outside of their control. We know from the data collected, we know in my jurisdiction, unfortunately a jurisdiction that still incarcerates, not my county, but my state still incarcerates children, that these are children, disproportionately children of color. And this is affected in part by how the schools view our children of color. And our communities, because they're those children, not our children. And I've often said that judges punish children who have punishing lives. And it is not a very successful outcome. So what works for the hunters out there? And I apologize for getting sort of tearful. I've read that obituary many times. I don't know how Hunter died. I unfortunately saw the obituary after the funeral. Wasn't able to attend, and I would have. But just reading out loud, it's the first time I've read it out loud, so I apologize for getting a little heartfelt about my kids. So the question really is, what can judicial officers and community leaders do for the hunters out there? And I'm going to give you sort of my wish list, if you would. Number one, let's remove status offenses entirely from court authority. These are offenses, not going to school, smoking cigarettes, buying alcohol, that really belong through the lens of a community response. We need to look at this child and this family in regards to children in need of services, not what you've done wrong. Put in place intervention or diversion programs that address the underlying cause of this family's inability to be successful in the school or social setting. Put in place a trauma intervention program. Please recognize that a lot of our kids that can't get to school have a trauma history. What does that mean? It means they may very well have been abused and neglected as a child. It may mean the child that runs away or who physically assaults a parent has been assaulted by that parent for his or her whole life. Look at national organizations such as the Vera Institute, such as the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges, such as the Coalition for Juvenile Justice represented here today. Hi, Marie. Because they can provide you both data, but most importantly, training and technical assistance to change our approach to these kids that need it most. Please remove the valid court order exception. Don't give judges the tool to do what we know from a developmental perspective, from a moral perspective, from a logical perspective, does not change behaviors or help any children. And support the judiciary. Supporting the judiciary means supporting reauthorization of JJDPA. It means helping judges understand not just the law, but understand the importance of the decision, lifetime decision on this child. And I think I'm going to hear a little bit about that in a minute. Require, finally, and recognize that children with a history of abuse and neglect have a harder time learning and conforming their behaviors to what's expected, and support them, stop punishing them. When I flew in yesterday from Louisville, on the plane was the mayor of Louisville. I didn't know he was going to be, and I saw him, and I said, "Well, Mayor Fisher, what are you doing here?" And he says, "Well, there's a conference of mayors that I'm here." He said, "Joan, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to talk about status offenders." And he says to me, "Well, what are we doing about that?" And I said, "Well, Your Honor, it's a complex question and answer that I can't really give you in what we call an elevator speech." You all know what an elevator speech, 4 sentences or less. I said, but in our community where we have juvenile violence out of control, in a community where we're not getting enough kids to graduation, in a community that's supposed to be, in Louisville, is considered a compassionate city, we have to take a look and re-look and re-ask ourselves, if what we're doing is working, let's keep doing it. But everybody in this room and around this nation knows that what we're doing is not working, and we've got to stop and do something else so that I don't have to read any more obituaries in public. Thank you.